good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time you are watching this pre-recorded discussion. Again, thank you so much for being with me on this next module. As a short recap, we discussed in the last module about Rizal's life when he was in Calamba, his education in Binyan, in Ateneo Municipal, and in UST. So in this juncture, we will be discussing about his secret mission and travels abroad. So in the previous module, we also situate you that upon Rizal's when he finished his degree in UST, he decided to travel abroad. And that is to pursue ophthalmology because number one, he intended to heal the growing blindness of Doña Chodora's eyes as soon as he will become an ophthalmologist. And aside from the reason, which is education, Rizal was also encouraged by Pasiano to do his mission and to do his secret mission, and that is to observe the ways and life, the education, the culture of the European nations, so that when he returned to the Philippines, he could apply his learnings and free the Filipinos from Spanish tyranny. So parang ang goal ni Pasiano was for Rizal to help the Filipinos, by raising their voices to the Spaniards and by espousing the tyrannies and the ill effects of the administration of the Spaniards in the Philippines. So let us see whether or not Rizal would be able to accomplish that secret mission or whether or not he will become an ophthalmologist. So the learnings or the specific learning outcomes that we would be achieving at the end of today's discussion is for you to make judgment on the travels and adventures of Rizal to countries of different cultures that became his inspiration for reforms. Yes, you've heard it right. Rizal wanted so much to go to these places with the aim that whatever are the things that he observed in these places, he might also be able to apply it to his own Philippines. So in his travels, Rizal traveled in Europe, and it was again part of his preparation, specializing in ophthalmology and broadening his knowledge of the life of the people in various places and to be able to apply it in the Philippines. So he, along the way in his travel and based on your readings, he was able to meet Blumentritt. And I think if you could go back to your readings as well, Rizal was able to go to Singapore, to different places, in Naples, in Marseilles, and Japan, and a lot of places where Rizal described as something that we can learn so much into. For example, I'll give a very short example on the things that at this point you're expected to learn already. When Rizal went to the United States, he realized that it is a country where there is progress, and there is a lot of things that we can appreciate too, such as their economic freedom, their way of making or uplifting the economic activity of their nation. But Rizal also observed how the races are being discriminated, such as the disparity between the blacks and the whites in America. And aside from that, Rizal also observed that when he was in Japan, anong sabi ni Rizal? Japan, the only thing that he disliked in Japan is the mode of transportation, which they called as rickshaw. Nung sinabi niya that it is really a place where he appreciated a lot about culture, how people was able to behave in such a way that Rizal also appreciated it. And on those travels, he also was able to meet Osei-san, the love of his life. And he was also able to meet Tetsuo in one of his travels. Just like him, he was also a fighter for all those things that have written about their country. What else? Rizal was also able to travel in Marseilles, the one of the novel that he watched or he read, The Count of Monte Cristo, and he really wanted to go there just to verify whether or not this is really the place that he could read on the book. What else? He had been to a lot of places that if you are able to lump it all up together, you can only assess how Rizal was able to describe each of these places on his journal. And I think you were able to read them at this part of the discussion. And so on November 3, 1882, Rizal studied medicine, philosophy, and letters in Universidad Central de Madrid. And it was on this school that Rizal was able to explore his postgraduate degree. Pero at this point, Rizal was not able to complete his degree as a on philosophy and letters. He was not able to graduate because Rizal has reasons. Anong sinabi niya? Number one, he believed that if he wanted to pursue the postgraduate degree, it is only for those who wanted to teach. And being an Indio or a Filipino, he know that he will not be able to teach in his Philippine lands because the friars are against it. Second, he feel like he was not able to pay the corresponding fees kasi nga medyo mahal, and during that time he was also receiving less less allowance coming from Pasiano because of the poor harvest due to locusts that is experienced by their family in Calamba. So those are the things that in short, Rizal does not have the doctor's degree when it comes to philosophy and letters, but he has the doctor, which is the ophthalmologist degree as a doctor in medicine. And in 1885 to 1886, he decided to specialize in ophthalmology, and he went to France and Germany. So he published as well there the Noli Me Tangere in Berlin, Germany. Rizal even said that he wanted so much the Filipinos to help him, such as the Ilustrados in Spain, but they are too busy with women, cards, and alcohol or wine, that they forgot to do their share with the book. So there was that time that Rizal does not even have enough to continue writing the Noli Me Tangere, and he even told us in his journal that he even put the manuscript on fire because he wanted to give up. He felt so alone, and the Ilustrados are not helping him. He could not even afford to buy food because of the meager allowance that he is receiving. And so Rizal was able to go through and pass everything just because he was so determined to finish the Noli Me Tangere. So the thing that I want to ask to the class to start the recap is, what happened to Rizal after the publication of the Noli Me Tangere? So that question is something that is so vague that there are a lot of things that happen all throughout the report that we can assess just to come up with an overall, a holistic discussion as to what happened to him after the publication of the Noli. But of course, before all the specific details comes in, we all know that he had his grand tour of Europe with Viola, wherein after he received Pasiano's remittance of 1,000 pesos, Rizal was able to pay Viola. If you could still remember, he loaned 300 pesos just to publish the Noli Me Tangere, and he was able to pay Viola the sum of 300 pesos. So after paying his debt, he was ready to see Europe with Viola. And of course, they went to Dresden, wherein Rizal, who was also interested in botany, was able to see a lot of things in Dresden. He said that there are a lot of numerous plant varieties of extraordinary beauty and size. And of course, aside from Dresden, he was able to go to Letmiri, Bohemia, which is now Czechoslovakia. And of course, the best thing that happened in Bohemia was for him not to see Blumentritt. And like today that you can just chat someone, message someone in Messenger, Rizal, before going to Bohemia, he sent a letter beforehand to Blumentritt with, of course, a sketch of himself. Kasi sabi ni Rizal, para mailhan siya ni Blumentritt right after he will go down on the train, he sent instead of a photo of himself, a sketch of himself, so that Blumentritt will be able to see him. And so, of course, as we all know that he had a very good visit with the Blumentritt family, and he had a very good experience with Blumentritt in Bohemia. Prague, he visited tombs, bacteriological laboratories, saints, and the famous caves. And aside from Prague, he was able to go to Vienna, Linz, Rainfall, Italy, Madrid, and so many places that were mentioned in the reporting. But if there is something no that he disliked in the Madrid exposition, it was when the Igorots were displayed as objects of mockery and laughter by the Spanish people and the press. Because no ayaw na ayaw ni Rizal na pinagtatawanan ang very essential no people that of course comprises the Filipinos, and them no associating the Filipinos as the Igorots are just wearing G-strings is something is something that Rizal was not so happy about, and this is something that he disliked in the Madrid exposition. And all throughout he said, "I am tired as a dog," he wrote to Blumentritt, "but I will sleep as a god," because he was so happy with all the things that he experienced in Europe. But after 5 long years of memorable trip, no, tour in the different parts of Europe, he returned to the Philippines in the August 1887 because, according to him, aside from visiting Europe and coming it all together for his secret mission, he still remained at heart as a Filipino. He still misses his families. He still missed Calamba and all the things now that he experienced in Calamba. And there are also several reasons why he wanted to return home. Number one is he wanted to operate his mother's eyes, because yun nga ang naging rason why he wanted to become a doctor, no? An ophthalmologist, and that is to cure the growing cataract of his mother's eyes. And of course, no, for some time he realized that Leonor was so silent. No, he did not receive letters from Leonor like before, and he wanted to inquire what happened to Leonor and what happened to her silence. And of course, which is, I think, no, if you will ask me, one of the very important reasons why Rizal wanted to go home, and that is to find out for himself how the Noli and his other writings were affecting the Filipinos and Spaniards in the Philippines, and to see to it if ano nang nangyari, because the target is the Spaniards to read it, kaya nga nasulat ang Noli in the Spanish language. So how did it affect no the entire Philippines, and especially the Filipinos and the Spaniards in general? And lastly, which is of course the epitome and the ideal no reason, to serve his people who had long been oppressed by the Spanish tyrants. So, nagsulat siya sa kanyang papa. He said to Don Francisco, "I shall embark for our country that from the 15th to the 30th of August," parang assumption lang because he was riding in a steamer, "we shall see each other." And his family welcomed him affectionately with plentiful tears of joy. And it was a very happy homecoming. However, no, aside from being a happy homecoming, there were also fears on the family of Rizal. Number one, papaano natin masasabi that they were also worried of Rizal's safety? Um, it's really because of the Noli Mitangere and Pasiano no, during his entire stay in the Philippines, did not leave him during the first days after arrival to protect him from any enemy assault. Second, his own father would not let him go alone, so lest something might happen to him. And so, kailangang nandun si Pasiano or either any of his friends or family relatives would go there no, to help him. What else? So, fulfilling his reasons to go home, ito yung mga, 'di ba? Ito yung mga reasons bakit gusto ni Rizal pumunta sa Pilipinas, and what happened. Let us dissect them one by one. So, to operate his mother's eyes, so was it successful? So, when he arrived home, he established a medical clinic. His first patient was his mother. Within few months, he was able to earn 900 pesos as a physician. After a year, he earned a total of 5,000 for his medical fees. Being called Dr. Oliman because he came from Germany, and of course, because of that, he only gave reasonable medical fees. Hindi niya masyadong sinisingil ng malaki ang mga clients niya. In fact, no, even give gratis to the poor. Sometimes, his services are for free. What else? When it comes to the silence of Leonor Rivera, it was a failure to see Leonor Rivera. Reason, Leonor Rivera's parents did not like him for a son-in-law. And because for them, no, contributory ang Noli Me Tangere, because during that time, no, marriages must be arranged by both the parents of the groom and the bride. And if the bride's parents dislike you for a groom someday, and so it will not really be pushed through. And for some other reasons, they do not like Rizal because of his, no, nationalistic ideals, and they do not like Rizal because they thought that the Noli Me Tangere is attacking the church, and when you attack the church, you are also being not considered as heretic. And of course, these are things that a normal um, Catholic family would not like in a home. And so I'd like not to summarize, no, the misfortunes that Rizal experienced in after arriving in the Philippines into four. We will be dividing it into four. Storm number one from Governor General Terrero. So, ito na yung mga nangyari sa kanya class right after arriving in the Philippines. And for me, no, to come up with a summary, I dissected into four. So, number one, he received a letter from Governor General Emilio Terrero requesting him to come to Malacanang because of the alleged subversive ideas of the Noli. And so, nung na-assign na ni Governor General Terrero si Andrade na kasama ni Rizal when he was in the Philippines. And so, Terrero realized that upon reading, no, the Noli Me Tangere, yes, no, whatever was written on the Noli Me Tangere were a representation of the Filipino society, and medyo liberal din naman si Governor General Terrero, no. He allowed Rizal to do whatever he wants and even assigned a guard for him. What else? Second, the storm number two, or the difficulty that Rizal experienced right after he arrived in the Philippines, was that the faculty committee come up with the report because the faculty members of the UST, no, came up with the report. And nung sabi ng mga faculty in UST, because we know that most of them are Dominican friars, that the Noli is heretical, impious, and scandalous in the religious orders, anti-patriotic, subversive of public order, injurious to the government of Spain, and its function in the Philippine Islands in the political order. In short, the faculty members of UST, no, consider the Noli Me Tangere as subversive. It is anti-friar, it is anti-Catholic, and it's anti-Spain. So doon na nag-start, no, ang mga claims that the Noli Me Tangere should not be utilized by the general public. In short, it should be banned. So, however, no, even if there were several attacks, there was also a very good defender in the persona of Father Garcia. And I sum it all up in a table. So let us see. Father Rodriguez, who is of course the famous attacker of the Noli, said that Rizal is an ignorant man because when he wrote the Noli, no, according to Father Rodriguez, he did not try to look into the overall, no, picture of Spain. That is why he tried not to attack the Spaniards in such a way as how it was reflected in the Noli Me Tangere. However, Father Garcia defended that Rizal is not an ignorant man because he is a graduate of Spanish universities and even a recipient of scholastic honors. In short, how come, no, Rizal would be and it would become ignorant of all the things he had written in the Noli Me Tangere when in fact he is a graduate of Spanish universities. And of course, he also received a lot of distinctions in these universities. And so according to Father Rodriguez, number two, Rizal attacked the church and Spain. But according to Father Garcia, Rizal did not attack the church but only the bad and corrupt friars, which is of course the people within the church who are manning, no, the church. He does not also attack Spain but only the Spanish officials who does not know, who does not entirely give the Filipinos the kind of good service it deserves. And which is of course the funniest of all the attacks. Father Rodriguez said that if you read the Noli Me Tangere, you are committing mortal sin. But of course, Father Garcia, who knew that Father Rodriguez would not say all of those comments against the Noli Me Tangere unless he had read the entirety of the Noli Me Tangere. And so Father Garcia assumed that since Father Rodriguez had read the Noli Me Tangere, therefore he also commits a mortal sin. The irony of all the things that Father Rodriguez had said against the Noli Me Tangere. And of course, with all the comments of the UST faculty members, with all the attacks of Father Rodriguez and telling us that the Noli Me Tangere is anti-church, anti-Spain, and anti-Catholic. So the banning of the Noli was declared. And so the importation, reproduction, and circulation of the Noli Me Tangere be absolutely prohibited. And so ayaw na nilang ipabasa ang Noli Me Tangere. But class, we also have that what we so-called as reverse psychology, even if sometimes if you post something in a bulletin board when you say, do not read. But then, people would try to think, nganong dili gusto ipabasa? So there must be something on that novel that people does not want us to do or that does not want us to know. And so, the reverse effect of the banning serves the Noli to become more popular. In short, even if it was banned, people are secretly getting wanting to get an access of the Noli Me Tangere. And so naging popular ang Noli Me Tangere instead of the purpose of the banning itself. However, aside from the banning of the Noli Me Tangere, we all know na naging flimsy na, hindi na makatarungan ang ginagawa ng mga friars, especially to the family Rizal in Calamba. So, yung pinataasan na nila ang renta up until the farmers cannot anymore afford the rental fees. And so Governor Terrero, influenced by the facts brought about by the Noli, ordered the government investigation of the friar estates. Pinaimbestigahan niya kung ano ang rason bakit may agrarian trouble na sa Calamba. Goal to remedy whatever iniquities might have been present in connection to land taxes and tenant relations. So, gustong malaman ni Governor Terrero kung totoo ba ang sinasabi ng mga Calamba farmers na there were already iniquities and masyadong pinapataasan na ang renta. And so, ang affected na land or the Calamba hacienda owned by the Dominican Order, kasama na doon ang land na nanirerentahan ng pamilya ni Rizal. And so, ito yung mga observations na according to the investigation, ito yung mga nakita na iniquities na also because Rizal spearheaded the investigation, ito yung sinulat niya. Number one, the hacienda of the Dominican Order comprised not only of the lands around Calamba, but also the town of Calamba. In short, napaka-huge ng pagmamayari ng mga friars, especially the Dominicans. The profits of the Dominican Order continually increased because of the arbitrary increase of rental paid by the tenants. When we say arbitrary, sometimes pag gusto lang nilang pataasan, gusto lang nilang manghingi ng mga pair of chickens or whatsoever, kung ayaw ibigay sa kanila, so they will just drastically increase the rent without due reasons. Third, the hacienda owner never contributed a single centavo for the celebration of town fiesta, for the education of the children, and to the improvement of the agriculture. Kasi class, as what we've discussed beforehand, there is no separation of the church and the state. So in short, the friars acts for spiritual purpose and also for governmental concerns. So kung ganon, it is expected that out of the rentals that the farmers are paying, it should be used for the education of the children or for the improvement of agriculture. Pero walang nangyayari. And fourth, High rates of interest were charged to the tenants for delayed payments of the rentals. And when the rentals could not be paid, the hacienda management confiscated their carabaos, tools, and homes. So kung i-confiscate ang mga carabao, tools, and homes, ano nang mangyayari sa kanilang farmland? In short, it will be so much for them to take, and then hindi na nila matitil ang land, i-confiscate na din ng mga friars ang land, eventually mawawala sa kanila ang kanilang pinaghihirapan. Results, no? Anonymous threats against his life were received by his parents. Nung nalaman ng mga friars na it was Rizal who come up with all of this, he wrote the Noli Me Tangere, he investigated the agrarian farms in Calamba, and he was the reason behind all no the um, intrigues that is happening all around. And so, no, napakaraming threats sa life ni Rizal. And the friars, no, exerting efforts on Malacanang to eliminate him. And so, gusto na nilang mawala si Rizal. Gusto na nilang umalis si Rizal. Gusto na nilang maban ang Noli Me Tangere. In short, they just wanted all means, no, to eliminate Rizal into the picture. And so the third and fourth reasons of going home infuriated further his enemies. Ano yung third and fourth reason? Yung malaman kung ano ang naging effect ng Noli Me Tangere sa mga Filipinos. In short, it's opening now the minds of the Filipinos that indeed, no, these are happening to them and to the people in Calamba and even the Philippines. Fourth reason is to serve his Filipinos who had long been oppressed by the Spanish tyranny. He served it when he created the investigation team regarding the Calamba agrarian trouble. And all of those third and fourth reasons, no, infuriated, meaning mas napalalong napagalit na ngayon ang mga friars. And so, because of that, no, his presence in Calamba, according to Rizal, was jeopardizing the safety and happiness of his family and friends kasi napakaraming mga government officials and friars ang galit kay Rizal. And sabi niya, he could fight better his enemies and serve his country's cause with greater efficacy by writing in a foreign country. And so, his decision to go back to Europe and leave Calamba for the second time happened. Okay, so at first, Rizal prepared to go home. He was so prepared that he wanted to communicate to his family his preparations to go home. However, he could not stay in Europe in the face of sufferings which afflicted his family. Nung nalaman niya that the Calamba problem is getting worse, when he knew that his family was being attacked by the Dominican friars because the rental of the land was getting higher and higher, it preempted Rizal not to really want to go home and help his family. However, sabi pa nga niya, he could not stay writing a novel in a foreign country knowing that his family and friends were jeopardized and they were persecuted by the friars. However, there is only one thing, no, that totally changed his plan, and that is when he received a letter from Pasiano. Pasiano said that he wanted Rizal to stay in Europe, especially in Spain, because they lost the case against the Dominicans in Manila and that they appealed it to the Supreme Court in Spain. However, they need a lawyer that will retain the services against the case in Madrid. And because we all know that by profession, Marcelo H. Del Pilar is a lawyer, and so Rizal retained their services of Marcelo H. Del Pilar. And there were a lot of misfortunes that happened to Rizal that I summed it all up into 6. And I tried not to come up with a summary for you to easily understand the discussion for today. So what were these misfortunes? So he tried all legal means to seek justice for his family and the Calamba tenants, but to no avail. Disappointment after disappointments piled on him. So when Rizal was in Madrid, he has this almost duel with Antonio Luna, another with Wenceslao Retana, and he discovered LEONOR Rivera's infidelity, the Del Pilar Rizal rivalry, and when he also abdicated his leadership in La Solidaridad, and of course, failure to get justice for family. Now, he had his almost duel with Antonio Luna. It all started because Antonio Luna fell in love with a uh, girl named Nelly Bosted. So, nung naging sila na, um, he proposed to Nelly, but then Nelly rejected the proposal, and he blamed Rizal for failure to winning Nelly kasi nga daw baka Nelly was also in love with Rizal. However, during the course of their, kasi nga nagiinuman, Luna, having an alcohol-befogged mind, could not control. He uttered unsavory remarks about Nelly. Para sigurong sinasabi niya, he said something against Nelly that Rizal could not live with. And so, sabi niya, he could not tolerate any slur against the honor of any woman. Knowing Rizal, who has most of his siblings were women, he disliked the unsavory remarks of Del Pilar to Nelly. And so, angered, he challenged Luna, his friend, to a duel. Sabi niya, siguro, let's have a duel through sword. And so, parang na-realize ni Luna that indeed he was wrong. And so, he apologized, and aborted the duel. However, the second misfortune that Rizal experienced in Madrid was when Wenceslao Retana, he also summoned Wenceslao Retana to a duel. Retana is a talented Spanish scholar and a press agent of the friars in Spain. In short, class, Retana is a writer who only writes in favor of Spain. The goal is not to discredit Rizal, so he is writing a lot of negative comments about Rizal so that people who will be reading about Rizal's article would realize that the write-ups of Rizal are something that should be discredited about. And so he used to attack the Filipinos, including Rizal, in various newspapers in Madrid. But there's only one writing that totally um, angered Rizal, and that is when Retana wrote an article in La Epoca, an anti-Filipino newspaper, wherein he said that the reasons daw why the Rizal family nganong gikuha ilahang land were rejected against them because they were not able to pay the rent. Although we all know that indeed the Rizal family did not pay the rent because the friars were flimsily or drastically increasing the rent out of flimsy reasons. Walang reasons at all. They were just doing it. So Rizal felt so insulted not only for him but also for his family and for the people in Calamba. And so he challenged Retana for a duel. And Retana, having known Rizal, that Rizal is a man of honor, Rizal said you can either choose a sword or a pistol. And Retana, who does not know how to use either a sword or a pistol, published a retraction and apology in the newspaper, and of course aborted the duel. The third misfortune that Rizal experienced in Madrid is when he realized he heard about the infidelity of Leonor Rivera. Class, Leonor Rivera, if you could still remember, was not the reason why Rizal, in his first homecoming, wanted to know about the silence of Leonor Rivera. At sabi na ni Leonor, his parents disliked Rizal for a son-in-law. And so, akala ni Rizal that that was really the reason. But then thereafter, he learned that Rizal, announced her coming marriage to an Englishman, the choice of her mother. So, kaya pala, nag-realize ni Rizal na ayaw nila sa kanya because the parents wanted Leonor to be married to an Englishman named Henry Keeping because Henry Keeping is an engineer, a railroad engineer. So siguro nailhan nila and then they just wanted Leonor to be married to Henry Keeping. And of course, Rizal was so devastated that he wrote a letter to Blumentritt. And I think I want to include this because Blumentritt had this very good advice to Rizal when it comes him losing Leonor Rivera. Sabi nga ni Blumentritt, I am grieved with all my heart that you have lost the girl to whom you were engaged. But if she was able to renounce a Rizal, so which is so good, kung gibiyaan niya usa ka Rizal, she should not possess the nobility of your spirit. In short, she does not deserve you. She is like a child who cast away a diamond to seize a pebble. In other words, she is not the woman for Rizal. No? Such a very good advice from a friend to whom, in those times wherein Rizal was so devastated and felt that the world is upon him. Parang sinasabi niya na kung kaya kanyang pakawalan, para siyang pumunta sa isang ilog na naghahanap ng isang bato at pinakawala ng isang diamante. So, I think Blumentritt was referring to Rizal as the diamond in this advice. What else? There is also this Rizal-Del Pilar rivalry. So what happened? Del Pilar is the owner of La Solidaridad. Aside from being a lawyer, he also purchased La Solidaridad from Pablo Rezanzares. And he was also the editor because he replaced Garciano Lopez Haina. Now, sabi ni Rizal, because he realized that members of the La Solidaridad, or SOL, are no longer adhering to high standards of morality. Ito yung palaging sinasabi niya. Sometimes, they asked them to help him write the No Limitangere, they did not write because they wanted to write about women. And he said, members of SOL should also have possessed that kind of dignity and spirit of sacrifice that he wanted to act as the leader in order to reform the members of La Solidaridad. However, the members of La Solidaridad dislike Rizal because of his kanabitong iyang attitude of always manghilabot daw sa ilang private lives, and they believe that they do not like Rizal because Rizal wanted not to interfere with their private lives. And when the Rizal suggested that La Solidaridad should elect among themselves a responsable or a leader, Rizal was so convinced in his mind that the responsable would reform the members as well as the direction of La Solidaridad. And so, nag-negate si Del Pilar because he said, why would Rizal want to elect a responsable where in fact it is a private enterprise. It is owned by Del Pilar. And so Rizal said, why not? And let us see if the members will vote a responsable, then indeed, the members want someone to lead them. But if not, then it's the choice of the members. And so, when the election took place, the first round of election, because they need two-thirds majority. For example, if you are 100 members in a group, you should at least get 75. Tama ba? Two-thirds. I mean, if you are 75 in a group, you should at least get 50 in order to get the two-thirds majority. So what happened? On that time, nung nag-elect na sila on the first round, Rizal did not get the two-thirds. So in short, Rizal did not get, for example, if there are 75, he did not get the 50 two-thirds majority. On the second round, wala gihapon. In short, if you don't get the majority, there is a question about how many people are supporting you. In short, not all people are supporting you. And on the third round, perhaps people get tired, members are telling us, sige, let's just vote for Rizal so that the voting will end. And so Rizal got the majority vote on the third round. But considering that he only took it on the third round, Rizal decided that indeed maybe the members dislike him. Maybe the members does not really want him to become the responsable. And so, he declined the position because out of honor and dignity and out of itong Filipino delicadeza that if it's not meant for you, if people does not want you there, if people does not want you to sit there, then why force yourself on that position? That was the thinking of Rizal during that time. And so, sabi niya, he preferred to abdicate his leadership. He wanted to leave the La Solidaridad rather than to continue to be the cause of disunity. Kung ayaw naman nilang hilabdan sila sa ilahang mga private na lives, if ayaw din naman nilang Rizal would direct them all throughout the duration of the organization, then might as well not accept the position. And so, he stopped writing for La Solidaridad, and then later on, umalis na si Rizal, iyan ang gibiyaan ng La Solidaridad. For some time, Rizal left his companions in Sol. However, Del Pilar realized later on na people, the readings of people who were trying to read La Solidaridad's no readers declined, and even no the write-ups of Sol were no longer as good, as intriguing as before. And so Del Pilar realized that he really wanted Rizal to resume writing for the organization. However, Rizal wrote, no, and so Rizal received a letter from Del Pilar, which is quite funny because no, he was trying not to act. He was trying not to say something that also ignited Rizal's ideas na parang ayaw na talaga niyang bumalik because according to Del Pilar, if you have any resentment, I beg you to put it aside. If you consider me at fault and this fault is pardonable, forgive me. Parang sinasabi ni Del Pilar, if you think, no, ako ang nakasala and if mapasaylo pa ko nimo, so pasaylo ako, which is something that is so funny during that time. We would like you to resume writing for it. Not only would we strengthen the soul, but you would also defeat the friar in the Philippines because Del Pilar knew that if he will try to convince Rizal out of the controversy that is happening in the Philippines, then Rizal would really say yes. But it was the opposite. Sabi ni Rizal, I'm extremely surprised with your letter telling me about resentments. Ako nagalit, ako nang luod, parang ganan. If I stop writing for La Solidaridad, it is because of the following reasons. According to Rizal, I need time to work on my book. I need time to work on my El Filibusterismo. What else? I also wanted other Filipinos to work. And it's not only me, but also other Filipinos to do their job because I'd been doing my share for some time. I'd been doing all things not just to make sure that Sol would work properly, things would work hand in hand, but nothing really happened. What else? I consider it very important that the party have unity. Kasi nga nung nag-election sila, parang ayaw din naman nila sa akin. So, why not force myself? And for them, or for the Solidaridad to have unity, then it should be left as is. And so, Rizal did not really return to La Solidaridad. And he just allowed Marcelo H. Del Pilar to continue the writing of the La Solidaridad. And the sixth is his failure to get justice for the family. Diba, I told you already in the previous discussion that they appealed their case to Supreme Court of Spain. And Rizal took a lot of actions just for him to resolve the case in Spain. Because he knew if only the liberal-minded Spaniards would hear about their case, then perhaps they would win the case in Spain, even if not in Calamba, where most of the oppressive minds and friars are there. So the first thing he did was he wrote to the Minister of Colonies, and he wrote that in order to protest the injustices against the Calamba folks. However, nothing came out, nothing was resolved. And so, sabi nga ng El Resumen, a Madrid newspaper, wherein they tried to portray the Spanish government. He said, to cover the ears, not to hear anything, not to listen to the uh, colonial countries or the people in the colonial states, to open the purse for you to give something, to dole out something, to give money para mapadali ang imong mga gusto, and to fold the arms, which is a sign of superiority. This is the Spanish colonial policy. So how are you going to break that when you need when their ears are all closed to Indios, when you need money just to help you with all your costs, and when that superiority is raging and the biases against the Filipinos are there. Second action that he did is to ask statesmen, which are of course during that time are senators in the Spanish colony. However, Rizal was just disappointed because they merely gave him honeyed words of sympathy and nothing else. So he opted for his third very ideal action, and that is to see the Queen Regent Maria Cristina. However, how could Rizal see the majesty wherein just what the Madrid newspaper had said, he had neither powerful friends to bring him to the Queen's presence, nor gold to grease the palms of influential courtiers. In short, he does not know anything in the government of Spain. How much more money to ask people to help him to see the queen. And so Rizal was so devastated that he felt that disappointment after disappointments, he finally decided to focus on writing his El Filibusterismo and prepared for his second homecoming. And so, no class, if you will try to look into what happened to Rizal up until that moment, you will feel how devastated, you will feel how unfortunate he felt as a Filipino during that time. How he wanted to help his family but could not do anything because of his position and because of him not having those no not having enough money to grease the palm of influential courtiers. Rizal was so devastated at that time as to how he is going to continue with his goals as to what Pasiano wants him to do about their case in Calamba. And so, class, I think I will end today's discussion by summing it all up with the following learnings. So, for today, we discussed that um, Rizal had a lot of disappointments in Spain. In a previous discussion, we all know that he went to United States, he went to Spain, he was able to travel to Europe, but upon hearing that his family needs him to solve the case in Calamba, there were a lot of things that happened to him. He learned that even with his other duels with friends, he learned that Leonor Rivera was getting married to an um, Englishman, which is named Henry Keeping. He also learned that he is losing with their case in Calamba, and he even abdicated his leadership in La Solidaridad. During that time, Rizal felt so devastated that he does not even know what to do. And so he felt that the best way to express himself is to write the sequel of his novel entitled The El Filibusterismo. Uh, Talking about El Filibusterismo, that's all for today. I hope that although in a nutshell, we experienced and we've read how Rizal was able to expose himself in his travels. Rizal learned a lot from these countries. He even published two of the very important novels which form part of our discussion in the series 3. And Rizal was so keen in establishing his ideals in a foreign country because he has this idea that if the Spaniards will be able to read these books, then they can remedy whatever is happening in the Philippines. But that did not happen in his lifetime. Worse, he was accused of being anti-patriotic and anti-government. And these are the accusations that led to his execution, exile, and death in the last module that we have for this series. So, and that's it. Thank you so much for being with me today. Again, if you have questions, feel free to post it in your own respective Diagler courses or send an email to your instructors. Thank you so much, and until our next discussion, have a good day, goodbye, and stay safe always.